Well, this is a quick overview of existence. In the beginning, there was only darkness, which is also known as nothingness, which also came to be known as space. Space, in order to create the universe, God had to bend space, known as Kala, at a point in time. So technically, God, the creator, is holding the 5% created universe in the palm of his hand or her hand by the mere force of gravity. So, since God is the creator, the same references the dark one or nothingness, which that would be nothingness with potential, since we're referring to God, is um, nothingness actually is the realm of the spirit. God is a spirit being. So the dark one and nothingness, nothingness with potential, are terms that refer to God. Since they refer to God, that would be nothingness with potential, like I said. God would also come to be known as light. After creation, for light was created, not darkness. Only light was created. Uh, Darkness still comprised 95% of total existence. Notwithstanding, both darkness and light are references used for God. Well, so when it comes to fear, since the darkness is nothingness, there is nothing to be afraid of, nothing to fear. As it stands, when it comes to total existence, only 5% constitute the created universe. The other 95% of total existence to this day remains nothingness, otherwise known as darkness with potential, which is also um, known as space. As for transactions, the terms everywhere and nowhere, which have no coordinates, you can't find them with a GPS, are references to God as well as the spirit realm. Nothingness everywhere. God spans the entire 95% um, of nothingness, space, as well as the 5% created universe. So the entire 100 in the spirit realm. Transactions, however, can only be conducted in this 5% created universe. Now, the concept death, well, for example, the only memory a dead person carries is the last memory. And after she dies, she can no longer discriminate, referring to making conscious choices. How human beings function? Well, human beings are a dichotomy of both a physical body and mind, and two, a spirit nature, which who they are at the core. Human beings also become life, or only became life, and become life when God breathes life into them. So they're spirit beings. God breathed. Human beings come with five layers, one inside the other, the outermost being the physical body, inside of which is the mental, inside of which is the energy body, inside of which is the transient body, uh, going from physical to spirit when a person dies, transient. Uh, and then you have the core, the fifth layer, which is non physical, the spirit, who you are at the core. Everything outside your core, everything outside your spirit being in nature is outside of you, including your body and mind. So your body and mind, although they belong to you, are not you. They will return to the dust, but you will continue to exist. Whatever belongs to you can only be your property. In like manner, you can only claim to have your own body and mind. You cannot go around saying, "This is my life, I do what I want with my life." That is compulsive language, okay? You don't have your own life. You can say you have a piece, technically, for life is a shared commodity, shared with all other living creatures and things. So, so is consciousness. Now, consciousness is a shared commodity. Everyone is born conscious because everyone is born spiritual, and then people drift away from their spirituality the more they identify with A, B, and C. Like if you say, this is my family, you're discriminating, so you're becoming less spiritual because you're saying the others are not your family. And God is impartial. God does not discriminate. So your God is a spirit. So you the more you form identifications, the farther away you drift from your spirituality, of which you were born spiritual. So you need to return to your core, and the way you return to your core is by no longer discriminating. Yeah, I like this, but I don't like that. So you don't strive to become more conscious, you simply turn up the voltage, and as you turn up the voltage, you become more and more aware. For light reveals everything, so become enlightened. To be in the darkness is to not know something. Therefore, becoming enlightened means to know what you didn't know before. The two ways of knowing are one, either through logic, using the five common senses, or acquiring knowledge, two, through the experience of a relationship, likened to how hypothetically you'd know a prostitute through the experience of, i.e., a one night stand. That is the same way you know God, through the experience of a relationship, for God is a spirit being. There's no other way. You must be alert whenever you are driving, okay? But when it comes to the concept awareness, awareness is a spiritual concept having to do with your consciousness. Yeah? The way you know you're alive is because you're aware and you're conscious of it. So you must be alert when you're driving, but awareness is a spiritual concept. Since the physical and spirit realms cannot be bridged, to go from physical to spirit realm, you can only go through an explosion initially. Yeah, and as a human being, you have to go through the stages of your rigid state. I am this way, born this way, and you go from there to becoming liquid flexible, where you say, okay, I'm near now a night or a day person. I no longer like this, but I don't like that. You become flexible, yeah, and then you go from that stage to vapor, where children say, okay, this is my bubble, that's your bubble. But once the bubble bursts, you're both breathing the same air. So there's no longer distinction between what's yours and what's that person's. So then now you go from vapor to the realm of nothingness, which is the realm of the spirit. So those are the stages you go from physical to spiritual realm, which that's the only way through an explosion. Uh, Look, you cannot know God through logic. You can only know God through the experience of a relationship. So you can only surrender to such a process. So surrender in spirituality is not a weak concept by any stretch of the imagination. The concept of time, well, time is irrelevant in the spirit realm, that which is eternal. Time is only relevant in creation, in the created universe, because everything in the created universe comes with definitions which are boundaries of time and space. A boundary is something you cannot grow beyond. So in the physical realm, people trying to grow one promotion at a time is a very long and tedious way, that impossible way to ultimately grow. The way you grow is in the spirit realm, where there are no boundaries. Yeah. So become a devotee to spirituality, and you will grow leaps and bounds, because there are no boundaries in the spirit realm. Your space boundary, is your height and shoulder width. Your time boundary, your boundary of time, is your lifespan, your average of 70. So everything in the created universe goes around also in a cycle. The earth is going around the sun, the moon travels around the earth, and as for you, it's only because your mother's periodic cycle is in sync with the 29.5 day cycle of the moon that you are able to be born. Notwithstanding, cycles are good for fishing, farming, calendar making. To reach your intended destination in your career ambition, i.e., or in going from one point to the next, you have to break cycle. You have to break the cycle and more or less travel in a straight line direction. Lessons about breaking the cycle require a whole lot of time, referring to your lifestyle. Yeah, So people are there trying to squeeze pleasure out of the environment, doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result. You have to break the cycle to reach your intended destination. You come with nothing, you will leave with nothing. So you can rightly say that nothing belongs to you in life. Okay, choose to then hibernate and live on low energy, just waiting to die, which is the glass half empty view and approach to life. The other view or approach is to see the glass half full and to say that everything belongs to you because it's also true. The God is one and impartial. A spirit being over the 95 plus 5% created universe and 95% nothingness, darkness, space in existence. And so the universe is one energy. So when you become one with the universe opens up to you. Everything then belongs to you, given the universe opens up to you, and you are free to roam and grow without boundaries. For in the spirit realm, there are no boundaries. You can grow and expand without limit, which is what the intellect wants. The intellect is your tool for exploration. Life is an expedition. Your intellect is your tool for exploration, and your intellect does not want restriction. It does not like boundaries. If you become the village chief, from there you'll want to become the area rep. From there you'll want to become the prime minister. There's nothing wrong with ambition, you know. So time travel, well, the notion of time travel comes portrayed in the movies. That's a myth. There is no such thing as time travel. People travel. Time is on a steady 24-hour rotation in this created universe. As the Earth travels around the sun and darkness becomes overwhelming in places, certain places, to where it compromises productivity, they move the 24-hour clock forward so people can have more daylight hours for work, conducive for work. So the past, present, and future are three layers of the same thing. Okay, so one on top of the other. So this message that I'm sharing now in the present um, um, was future when I was drafting it, and it will become past whenever I'm done. Therefore, you don't have the luxury of managing time. Time is on a steady 24-hour rotation, and you have a lifespan which is limited time to live, i.e., you're 3 score and 10, and if you're fortunate, a little bit more. The only factor that you have control over, therefore, is energy, right? So that depends on the individual, how the effort. That's why you should live with full intensity. So, as a side note, the concept of stress management is a farce. For stress does not come from the environment. People create stress upon themselves. If you were carrying a calf when it was only 50 pounds with the proper technique, yeah, you still be carrying it when it becomes 250 pounds. The difference would be, only difference, that you'd get stronger. It would make you stronger. So the key is, right, to stop stressing your load and learn to carry it instead. So since energy is the only variable you have control over, then you need to always approach life living with full intensity, doing in 1 hour what it would take some people 10 hours to do, intense, not tense on the inside, while carrying a full energy pack on the inside, but relaxed, not lost on the outside. So what life is about, and not lifestyle. Life is about living and making memorable experiences. That's what you should be doing, making memorable experiences. That's how you live a full-fledged life. Because the concept fulfilled, look, it's you yearn to become fulfilled, but your heart can only be full um, um, until you encounter something or someone more appealing. As for your mind, even if you crush all the libraries and pound them into your head, there will always remain something more for you to learn. So fulfillment for human beings is to live a full-fledged life. That's all a tree wants to do or can do. That's all an animal can do and wants to do. to become a full-fledged dog, a cat, rat, whatever, you know. So you as a human being should also want to become a full-fledged human being. And as long as your mental acuity remains intact, you should only become full-fledged whenever you are dead. So to live a fulfilling life or fulfillment for the human being means to live a full-fledged life, which is to live with full intensity and joyfully. Finally, what's real as opposed to artificial? Well, real is whatever comes naturally with the creation. Furthermore, life and God pertaining to existence are both real. So what's natural are the five elements you comprise and the created universe comprise, and in the same similar proportion: 6% air, 12% earth, 73% water, 4% fire, 6% space. And these elements you're supposed to constantly cleanse. These five elements of which you're comprised. Constantly cleanse them. You know how? Well, you constantly take shower. You turn your face and back to the wind. You cleansing with air. And, you can take mud baths with clay, red clay. Constantly walk barefooted from time to time. Put your feet into the earth and be in touch with it. So that's how fire is a little more difficult. It's technical to cleanse with the fire, but the same fire is what you use in the bedroom. That's part of it. It's energy. In space, well, yes, you comprise space also. Space, it's nothingness, but you have a percentage of you that's space. 6%. Artificial, whatever is man-made, that's artificial. You can spend the entire day at a fancy hotel, i.e. in neighboring Mexico, getting a virtual tour. Yeah, but that's man-made, artificial, as opposed to real. Regarding what's true and what's not, well, truth and reality are related in that truth never changes, and truth is something that you can only come to realize. So what constitutes the relationship between truth and reality? Yeah, you don't read truth in a book or hear it from the mouth of a professor. Since reality never changes, it becomes true for you whenever you go, wow, now I got it. That'll be all. Have a good one.